Number 10, Superman vs. Muhammad Ali. Yeah, you heard me. This one-shot made its debut back in 1978, written by Dennis O'Neil and Neil Adams. It featured the Man of Steel and, of course, Muhammad Ali. So, how is this a thing? Well, it was part of the all-new collector's edition, numbered C56. So basically this alien named RIDDLER, who is part of a species known as the Scrub, visits Earth, and they demand that they pick their best fighter to go against theirs. Theirs being a behemoth named Hunya. If they refuse, well, the Scrub will then destroy the planet. So Muhammad Ali argues that since Superman isn't technically from Earth, he must be the one who fights. RIDDLER is amused by this, as he wants to know who's better of the two. So he pins the two champs up against each other. Now, of course, you're thinking, dude, Superman would dust him, hands down, no competition at all. Well, the fight is set to take place on MOJOS, which is orbiting a red star. So, no powers for Supes. So Muhammad Ali trains Superman to become a boxer. So they start training in Superman's Fortress of Solitude. Might as well train without powers, right? Get used to it? Well, the unlikely duo are given 24 hours to train, but using a time warping device, they're able to train for a couple months. RIDDLER figures out the device is being used, and boom, training's over, boys, wrap it up, nice try. So the fight is broadcasted intergalactically. Thousands tune in. Superman puts up a good fight, but ultimately Muhammad Ali is the greatest boxer ever to live, so Supes goes down. So now, Muhammad Ali has to fight Hunya. Even predicting which round he'll go down by. 4, he says it's 4. Now of course Muhammad Ali doesn't hold up too well against an alien at first, but he eventually knocks him out of the ring in the 4th round. See ya, dude. Number 9, Rainbow Hands. Yep, I said Rainbow Hands. Making its debut in 1958, the issue titled Superman's New Power. This might be even weirder than the Muhammad Ali one. So after detecting a disturbance under Metropolis, Superman checks it out, only to discover it's indeed an alien ship. So as soon as Clarky comes in contact with the ship, it explodes. Later on, he goes to fight some crooks, because you know how he does it. When he goes to use his powers, they're actually a bit different now. They're actually rainbow beams. Yeah, he shoots rainbows out of his fingers. How magical. This causes all of the crooks to become non-aggressive. And if that wasn't weird enough, soon after he discovers that he can shoot mini clones of himself at people. The people of Metropolis love this. I mean, of course they do. They get so attached to the clones that even Superman himself is like, hey guys, what about me though? Great, come on, I shot the clones. I'm the guy. Number 8, the SNARE. This issue was released with Action Comics Volume 1, issue number 592 back in 1987. The cover of this issue, first of all, is enough to draw you in. I mean, it shows Superman with Big Barda, like they're making out. And who's in the background? Mr. Miracle. Just watching the whole thing in horror. He even says the line, "Superman and my wife?" And it's laid across the cover. So what's going on? Mr. Miracle goes home to find Darkseid sitting on his couch. Immediately asking where Barda is, Darkseid gives him a tape to play, which may be the scariest moment of his life. I mean, if Darkseid just handed me a tape, I'd be like, no, what did you do? No, no, I have to rewind it first. So he clicks play and sees Big Barda dancing for sleaze. They don't show it, but it's heavily implied that it's in nature. So Sleaze takes mind-controlled Barda and Superman to an adult film director. Yep, and his name is even Grossman. His idea is that the adult tape would make enough money to accumulate an army to go against Darkseid. I mean, you know, that or a charity. Sure. And then in comes Mr. Miracle to save the day, releasing the two from Sleaze's mind control. That would have been a real awkward brunch if Mr. Miracle didn't show up. Quite the miracle if you ask me. Number 7, Super Menace. Coming from Superman Volume 1, issue 137, titled The Super Brat from Krypton. This one's fun and, of course, super weird. So Superman has a twin, or clone, rather. That's right, so when Jor-El shot Kal-El into space after the destruction of Krypton, that ship ended up crashing into a derelict space satellite and was then duplicated. The ship and the super baby inside of it. Now there's 2 of each. Now of course we know what happens to Superman's ship, but what about the other one? That craft was found by criminals named Derek and Bonnie. So they see this as a golden opportunity to raise a supervillain. Not a bad idea, honestly. I mean, it's pretty... Alright, cool. So they have this little super bat, and they tell him not to be seen until the right time, because that would be pretty bait, you know? So a kryptonite meteor crashes, and they realize that it doesn't affect little super bad. Oh. So years go by, and the super bad baby named himself Super Menace. That name does sound cool. Alright, it's cooler than what I was saying. And it's finally time to make his debut and go against Superman. So they fight, and Superman used his X-ray vision to see that this clone has something off about him. Supermenace is pissed now because Superman's like, yo, you don't have a normal body? What's going on with you? And then Supermenace makes it rain kryptonite meteors. This almost kills Superman until Supermenace decided he doesn't want to be a Supermenace anymore. So he saves Superman and goes back home. And that's when he turns his body back into raw energy, destroying him and his not so nice adoptive parents in the process. Number 6, Red and Blue 162. That's right, Superman Volume 1, Issue 162, titled The Amazing Story of Superman Red and Superman Blue. It's an all imaginary issue. So that's cool, I think. We just talked about Superman's evil clone. Well, that's not the first time they've had the idea of another Superman. So the Kandorians aren't too happy with Superman at this point. He was supposed to enlarge Kandor, cure kryptonite, and stop all the crimes ever on Earth. And he couldn't do it. Wow, what a loser, dude. You're fired, Superman. That's really, you can't do all those things? Embarrassing, if you ask me. So he splits himself up into 2 identical beings, which, you guessed it, are Superman Red and Superman Blue. And they both crush it. They recreate Brainiac's enlarging ray, they bring Kandor back to its original size on an all-new Krypton. Step 2, get rid of all the evil. Easy peasy. The Red and Blue Super 2 create an anti-evil ray, fancy, and ends all crimes on Earth. Superman Red marries Lois Lane, and Superman Blue marries Lana Lang. And they all live happily ever after, even Lex Luthor. Number 5, ants.
Ants. Ants. Ant-Man.
That's right, we got ants. Coming at you from Action Comics Volume 1, Issue 296, The Invasion of Ants. And it sounds just as crazy as you would guess. The cover alone is super weird and almost inviting. It shows Superman on the side of a building with an ant mask on. He's even saying the words, "Follow me, ant soldiers, buzz 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 buzz, we must capture Lois Lane, buzz 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 buzz, she will be our queen." Okay, you got it. So after a colony of giant ants was mutated from a nuclear war on another planet, they decided to come and check out Earth, as they all do, because we're so cool and all. So Superman uses red kryptonite radiation to give himself an ant's head. Not a mask. See, I said mask earlier, I was throwing you off. It's a head. He's got an ant's head. And he communicates with them. This is like the ultimate amalgam character. Clark Pym, anybody? I'd pay to see that. Number 4.
Run! It's Godzilla!
Yep, we even got flaming dragons. Superman Volume 1, Issue 142, appropriately titled Flame Dragon from Krypton. So Clark Kent and Lois Lane are heading to the Metropolis Space Exploration Convention Center because somebody apparently captured a space beast. Yeah, okay. So they arrive and yeah, there's straight up a space beast. Supes knows what it is. It's actually called the Kryptonian Flame Beast. I could have guessed that one, I mean, come on. So it sprays fire all over Clark, and all that is left is still Clark, but his regular clothes have been burned away. So he starts fighting the beast as Superman. And then the Flame Beast swallows a red kryptonite meteor. So Superman keeps his distance. He knows what's going on. He's dodging hits. He's waiting until the red kryptonite's effects starts taking action. And it weakens the beast, so Superman splashes it with water, freezes it with his icy dentine ice breath, and he hoofs it out to space. Then when Lois returns to the scene, she sees Clark all bandaged up, and the doctors are like, oh, he has minor burns, and she buys it, of course. The doctors being Batman and Supergirl in disguise. Number 3, Red Kryptonite. Action Comics Volume 1, Issue 283 has a plot that I would pay millions of dollars to see on the big screen. It would be so weird to see this. Titled The Red Kryptonite Menace, we find Jan Dex and Zogar, 2 chameleon criminal men from the future. So they travel back in time and they set up camp on a hidden island in Metropolis Bay. Their goal is to attract red and green kryptonite from space. So of course the military is onto them, but they disguise themselves. How, you ask? Oh, as a pile of rocks and a tree. And it works, because that's how easy it is. They set a trap with red kryptonite and plan to get Superman to go near it. The plan works like a charm, and upon Superman's arrival, his health starts to decline. So he wishes for thick fog, and it comes true. Okay, so what's next? Superman can grant himself wishes now? How is this possible? Okay, so then he wishes for, you guessed it, Sherlock Holmes to come and help him. This red kryptonite allows for him to wish for Sherlock Holmes. Benedict or Robert, which one did you go with? We're curious. Number 2, the Bat Witch. And no, I don't mean a sandwich made of bats, because that would be disgusting. And this channel, we don't show anything disgusting here. Batman getting his hands and head cut off though? That's more like it. That's now we're talking. Released in 1969, issue 186 of The World's Finest, we find Batman in quite the pickle, to say the least. So Superman and Batman have actually traveled back in time to solve a mystery of a broken bust that resembled Batman. So they go back in time and they rescue a lady named Sylvia Ward. Now Sylvia was actually accused of witchcraft. So Superman helps her stay afloat and Batman swims with her back to shore. And then she thanks Batman by kissing him right in the lips. Then Superman goes to introduce himself and Batman's like, nah, I got this, and takes her to the local bar. Oops! So Superman decides to use this era in his favor. He dressed up as Batman and starts doing like crazy witchcraft stuff. So much so the town deems him an actual witch. So he's about to be burned at the stake and then a thunderstorm rolls in. And everyone's like, I love watching people burn but can't stand the rain. We're out of here. Everybody leaves except for, you guessed it, Ben Franklin. Sorry, what? Yeah, Ben Franklin, like the Ben Franklin. He's just hanging out there apparently. He actually tries to free Batman with one of his experiments, but Superman doesn't let that happen. Eventually, even Ben Franklin's like, alright man, you're on your own. See ya, dude. And when Batman asks Superman why he's doing this, Superman says, figure it out yourself. So next time you catch your friend maybe flirting with your crush, just frame them for witchcraft. It works every time. And finally, number 1, Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen. Volume 1, issue 116 to be exact. Okay, I know I said this list wasn't in a particular order, but I can't not do this one last. This issue came out in 1968 and I don't think we'll ever see it on the big screen, because if we do, I'm going to walk out of said big screen. The cover alone is enough. I mean, it shows Superman flying in saying, Jimmy, what's gotten into you? Why are you acting like an ape? And then the actual ape on the cover says, because he is an ape, Superman, in my body, I'm the real Jimmy Olsen. Yeah, they switched bodies. I'm surprised that camera didn't explode in Jimmy the Ape's hand. Apes are so strong, it's insane. So after a malfunction of a machine, they switched bodies. So Jimmy Olsen's body, Jimmy Olsen, starts screaming around like an ape. But Jimmy Olsen, the real person, however, the dude embraces it. He buys a green pinup suit, even a cool hat. He rocks the look. He even goes to work. He's like, you know what? I'm gonna be a simian sensation here at the office. You tell him, Jimmy.
Number 10, Songs of the Orphan Child. This is a more weird, twisty moment that is part of a longer, more confusing story, and this moment makes it pretty weird and also adds to the confusion. This moment comes to us from X-Men X-23's solo series, one of anyways. In her 2010 series, we see her take on Miss Sinister, who is really Claudine Ranko, a woman who was implanted with a genetic virus that basically transformed her into Mr. Sinister following his death. However, Mr. Sinister sought to use Miss Sinister's body to return fully, even shapeshifting or exploding into his true form, as Miss Sinister sought to gain more control over this new form herself, in essence becoming an independent though still villainous entity. This allowed us to get a moment at the end of issue 5 where we see Mr. Sinister bloodily break through Miss Sinister, popping out from beneath her form like a hideous magic trick. Blah. Mr. Sinister had returned. However, in the next comic he instantly disappears, turning back into Miss Sinister once more. So this whole shocking cliffhanger is instantly erased in terms of its importance for his full return. Gotta sell those comics, I guess.
Number 9, the Pizza Hut Collector's Edition. There's a few locations that would be perfect for a fight. I mean, New York City gets a lot of attention in superhero movies. Usually the climax will take place in a well-known area so people can watch and be like, wow, I was right there to think I was that close to Dr. Octopus. That's so crazy. It's nice having some sort of real-life relations to a comic book story because they're pretty far-fetched, so the second you throw in some common name or common place, you can't help but attach yourself to the storyline more so. But what if the climax happened and then all of a sudden, Pizza Hut. Yeah, you heard me. So back in 1993, before I even existed, there was an X-Men issue, rather there were 4 issues that were part of this X-Men Collector's Edition comics, with the 4th issue saying right on the cover, Explosive Finale, brought to you by Pizza Hut. Yeah, so they sold these comics back then in Pizza Huts, about Cyclops and Bishop when the climax is them going into a computer, and it's pretty wacky. They're like, whoa, all the cyberspace is warping around us. The visuals are all retro, green and yellow. Then this giant face appears, and it's none other than Arcade. He compromised Cerebro's core, or did he? So the fact that this is like a Pizza Hut comic series is hilarious because it's a good story, but then Pizza Hut's like, hey, don't forget about us. Like you could straight up go in, order a pizza, grab a comic book, and then pay at the counter. That would be the best day ever, hands down. The end of the series was a little odd, however. See, it was all Professor X and he was testing the X-Men. And he finishes the 4th and final issue with a little monologue about how he could always rely on a few good mutants to get the job done. And then Jubilee's like, yeah, for sure. Anyways, anyone want some pizza? And then, yeah, it's an advertisement. It's just like, hey, check this out. Psych, medium pepperoni, debit.
Number 8, Star Trek / X-Men. As weird as this one sounds, it actually made more sense than some other straight up X-Men stories. This crossover comic titled just Star Trek / X-Men saw our favorite mutants teaming up with the original series crew of the Starship Enterprise. The worlds collided due to a rift in space through which Proteus was able to move through and take hold of the long dead crewmate Gary Mitchell. In this issue, we get to see some pretty great shared moments between the two teams. Both Bones and Beast respond when Dr. McCoy is called upon, and Wolverine gets knocked out by Spock's Vulcan nerve pinch. Marvel character Gladiator is also featured in the issue and even punches Captain Kirk's ship full on, much to his surprise.
And number 7. Young Dragons in Love. Love is a beautiful thing. It comes in all shapes and sizes, even that of, well, a dragon. We go now to X-Men issue 181 titled Young Dragons in Love. This 1984 comic opens with quite possibly the 2 best images ever. The first opening shot is a group of bystanders looking up, being like, look up in the sky. Is it a bird? Is it a plane? Is it a... And then one guy's like, it's a dragon. And then in the next picture, the dragon is so stupidly large. Like, it's way above them. They're right directly underneath it. You would see this dragon from miles away. Like, they're all just staring, trying to figure it out. Hey, if you thought that was a plane, you might need some glasses. I don't know, just an idea. This issue is quite fun. It shows the group of people flipping through the book, trying to figure out if it's the Hulk or whoever. Then they're like, man, everybody at school will be so jealous we discovered a new monster. Sure. So out of this dragon falls the X-Men, and they start losing their shit. They're like asking for autographs, they're talking about Storm's hair change, thinking if it's like good or not. They probably worked for TMZ now that I think about it. The comic is just them trying to fight this dragon and also a smaller dragon that makes noises that like contribute to the conversation. Like someone will say something and then the little dragon will be like, sigh, after a line, but it's all smoky and dragon-like. It's amazing. And when it comes to Marvel and Dragons, after Ragnarok, I think we can pull this one off on the big screen. I'll paint myself green, I'll send in a self-tape. I'll be the dragon. Done and done. Let's do it.
Number 6, Performance. This story comes to us from Uncanny X-Men Annual issue number 10, where we are first introduced to Longshot, who of course comes from the Mojoverse. During this issue, while Longshot also shows up, so does a bunch of Mojo's goo. Yep. Mojo's goo. And the panels we get involving this evil plot and the goo are, well, there's something. Mojo's plan is to capture the X-Men and bring them to Mojo World to have them perform live. So he sends Longshot and the aforementioned goo, which depowers the mutants and also turns them into children. In the end, it's up to the new mutants to save the transformed core X-Men of the day, which also happen to include Magneto.
Number 5, Mojo's Media Madness. Remember that low-budget indie film that came out in like 1939? It was called The Wizard of Oz, I think it was. Oz. Had this younger singer, Judy Garfield, something like that. I don't know, not really well known. Only a handful of people have seen it, I guess. I don't know. This next X-Men issue takes the question we never knew we needed an answer to. That question being, what if the X-Men were in The Wizard of Oz? Yeah, so that villain Mojo is known for using Earth as forms of television entertainment for the universe. So in 1992, the issue titled Mojo's Media Madness had this epically weird storyline where Mojo gets Rogue, Cyclops, Beast, and Wolverine to think that they are characters from The Wizard of Oz. So Wolverine is talking like a cowardly lion, and it's actually quite hilarious. I feel like this type of story is what WandaVision is gonna end up feeling like on Disney+. Just a lot of weird references and lines, opposite of how the character normally is. So if you want to see for yourself, make sure you check out X-Men issue 10 from 1997.
Number 4, Something Slimy This Way Comes. This is a bizarre story where Professor X decided to throw a surprise birthday party for Kitty Pryde, and hired the most inappropriate clown, Obnoxio, for the party. In this first panel, we see Obnoxio smoking a cigar and thinking about how he's going to spend the pile of money that the professor promised him. The even weirder part of this story is that while this crazy party is going down with this ridiculous clown, the X-Mansion is infiltrated by a villainous mutant who can turn himself into ice cream, appropriately named Ice Cream, but spelled like an eyeball and the shrieking sound that is referred to as a scream. What's more is no one seems to know that Obnoxio was coming. I guess it's a super secret surprise? And Obnoxio also ends up in a ridiculous fight with the X-Men. Not only that, he actually doesn't do too bad.
And number 3, X-Babies? Mojo has popped up a few times on this list now, and for good reason. We've seen super babies before, whether it's in Amazon Prime's The Boys or Baby Grinch.
I hope the Santa plays.
Yeah, that part always hurt my teeth. I can't watch that. I get flashbacks from when I broke my front teeth. No thank you. But we also have X-Babies. That's right, so Mojo went ahead and did the X-Men dirty. So in the X-Men Annual Issue 10, Mojo is inspired by Muppet Babies and thinks, you know what would be pretty cool? X-Men babies. And it was pretty cool. This issue was released in 1986 and was the issue that introduced Longshot, actually. I like Baby Wolverine. He still rocks the claws and he's a badass, but he's like a cute badass. He has the hair. It's amazing. If I have a kid, I'm gonna dress him up like Wolverine and hopefully he doesn't talk the same. I don't know. They say golly gumbucks in the issue quite a bit, and now I'm gonna start saying golly gumbucks all the time. If you could see any X-Men as a baby in live action, which one would you pick? Comment down below so we can chat about it next video.
Number 2, Professor X gets sent weird honeymoon pictures. This is more of a moment that happened in the story Hell Hath No Fury as opposed to the whole story itself being weird. But the moment is so weird, it just needs to be touched on. At the beginning of the comic, we see Professor X reminiscing on the first of his students and also the first to join his X-Men team, pupil Scott Summers. Cyclops has recently left the team to settle down with his now new wife, Madeline Pryor, who looks exactly like Jean Grey. Scott had considered that she might actually be the reincarnation of Jean, but we later find out that she was actually Jean's clone created by Mr. Sinister. Professor X is reading a letter he's received from Scott detailing the events of his newlywed life and includes a picture of Scott and Maddie in bed together. Not only is that a weird thing to send your teacher slash father figure, but it's also weird in the sense that it makes you wonder who was taking this picture. Scott and Maddie also appear to possibly be both naked while in bed as well, so there's that.
And finally, number 1. Dracula? This time of the year is my favorite. The smell of leaves, decaying, lots of chocolate, and people that look like Dracula. I don't know, sign me up. Halloween always slaps. Now I figured it was only fitting to end this wacky list with Dracula himself making an appearance in the X-Men universe. We go now to X-Men Apocalypse vs. Dracula, which made its debut back in 2006. The series is quite cool, but of course it takes place in 1459, so right off the bat, pun intended, you're drawn into this medieval artwork and you see Vlad the Impaler just murking people like left and right. It's kind of like the Battle of the Bastards episode from Game of Thrones. Just a lot of metal clashing. Any movie with metal clashing, I'm in, sign me up. I love this kind of theme, the dark and spooky, like let's go. With Mahershala Ali signed on to play Blade in the MCU, I don't think we're that far out from seeing Dracula fight some Avengers. Jared Leto and Morbius as well. I think we got some bloodsuckers in the pipeline. Kicking off the list at number 10, Sad Space Worms. World's Finest Comics issue 289. We see Batman and Superman as they decide to catch up on some bro time. You know, take a break from beating dudes up all day, you know, just talk it out. I mean, the dialogue itself is really great stuff. It highlights the mental health struggles superheroes go through, not being able to save everybody. It's meaningful, it's powerful dialogue. It's just Superman and Batman talking alone in the Fortress of Solitude. But what takes this issue to new heights, well, rather to new lows, is when Superman and Batman are interrupted by a meteorite crashing, and out of the meteorite emerges the crew. The crew being depressed space worms. Yep, they're attracted to sadness. That's actually how they found the two in the first place, because their super depression was just glowing. So these aliens need emotion to die. I mean, why didn't you guys just say so? I got the Titanic, I got Notebook on DVD, let's go. You guys will be gone in seconds, no problem. And before we move on, guys, make sure if you haven't already, just toss us a quick thumbs up because it goes a long way here at our Fortress of Solitude. Thank you so much. Thanks. And number 9, we have Cat Fur Woman. Selena Kyle looked a bit different from the start, to say the least. We've seen numerous actors play the iconic Jewel Thief, with Zoe Kravitz playing her in the upcoming Robert Pattinson Batman. It's only fair to look back at her not so neat outfits. Well, in the first issue she appeared in, that being Batman 1 back in the 1940s, she was actually referred to as the Cat, rightfully so. Now, at this time her outfit looked a touch different. In Batman 3, she came out in this red cape, yellow dress, and fur mask. It looked weird. To think of the character as we know her now, and then to see her in this outfit, it kind of reminds me of in Harry Potter when Snape looks like Neville's grandmother. It wasn't until 1946 until her mask was changed to a more fitting look. Still not quite what we're used to, but definitely a step in the right direction. And then of course in the 50s she was deemed more of a sidekick to Batman rather than a villain, sporting a much cooler, less hairier look. And number 8, the unstoppable Riddler. Usually when Batman punches you in the face, it kinda hurts. But if we look back at Edward Nygma in the Silver Age of comics, specifically in Batman 171, the Riddler is setting booby traps left, right, and center, but when it comes down to the Batman making contact with the skin, he laughs. Is this a Joker or Riddler? What's going on here? Well, it turns out if you get some local anesthetic, punches to the face don't feel as bad. You don't say. Even on the cover of this issue, Batman and Robin are both surprised. What's keeping the Riddler up? He takes our hardest knockout blows and bounces right back. But how? And number 7, Batman the Witch. Released in 1969, issue 186 of The World's Finest, we find Batman in quite the pickle. So Superman and Batman at this point have traveled back in time to solve a mystery. Classic good old time travel fun. Wonder where the comics will take us today. So they go back in time, and during their mission, they rescue a lady named Sylvia Ward. Now Sylvia was actually accused of witchcraft. Yeah, they went way back. So Superman and Batman save her, and then she thanks Batman by kissing him. Ah, super emotional, very nice. Right on the lips. Intimate, cool. And then Superman goes in to introduce himself, and Batman interrupts and takes her to the local bar. Okay. So Superman decides to use this era in his favor. So he dresses up as Batman, starts doing all this wacky stuff, doing all this witchcraft stuff. So much so that the town deems Batman a witch. He's about to be burned at the stake, and then a thunderstorm rolls in. Everybody leaves except for, Ben Franklin, who's just hanging out, doing tests and stuff. He's just there. That's fine. Just playing with kites, checking out lightning, doing his Ben Franklin stuff. He actually tries to free Batman with one of his experiments, but Superman doesn't let that happen. He stops the electrical current from reaching him with his Superman hands. Even Ben Franklin's like, alright, I'm gonna head out. So when Batman asks Superman why he's doing this, Superman says, figure it out yourself. Damn. So next time your friends start flirting with your crush, just, tell everybody in town that they're a witch. They'll handle them. Works every time. And number 6, the rainbow costume. Sometimes it's tough picking an outfit for the night. Maybe you wore something similar right before. The whole thing is just stressful sometimes. And yes, that includes superheroes. In 1937, issue 241 of Detective Comics, we find Batman on the cover with quite the dilemma. He changes up the colors of his costume a lot in here, but why? Well, this has to do with the Comics Code Authority. So in order to appeal to the public eye that comics weren't just dark and gritty, So this issue about Robin hurting his arm also happened to have Batman sporting some fun new colorful suits. Eventually just putting them all together and rocking the infamous rainbow suit, which is sick. He's like, what do you think about red? No? What do you think about green? Huh? Is they green? I don't know. It's pretty neat to see on the page, but unfortunately, I don't think we're gonna get any crazy colorful suits on the big screen anytime soon. And number 5. Whale problems. So imagine you're Bruce Wayne, right? You're on a massive yacht, blasting some Dixie chicks. You're living it up, you're having a great time. Maybe you're showing off your fancy $6 million necklace. And then out of nowhere, a whale woman just blasts in and grabs it from you. We find this scenario in Batman 579. Bruce Wayne is, well, of course, shocked. He's like, excuse me, Miss Whale, can you return this gem to me? That would be great. Awesome, thanks a plenty. Now, of course, the whale doesn't cooperate, so Bruce heads to Gotham Aquarium to ask some questions. He meets Grace, a woman bound to a wheelchair who works at the aquarium. She gives the whole rundown on the orcas, how they fight other whales 3 times the size of themselves, and how she's working on a research project with orcas. But the funding ain't going so well. So of course you probably just figured out what's happening. She spends her time robbing from the rich, and instead of keeping the wealth for herself, she just donates it to charities. What a sweetheart. Not a bad gig at all. She ends up becoming an orca forever. God, that would suck. But don't worry, it doesn't last too long. Because in Detective Comics 819, she's killed by the great white shark. And number 4, the Bat Baby. Issue 147 of Batman has one of the funniest pages on a comic book title page. So we have Robin, just regular old Robin, and a baby sporting the mask and the cowl. And the businessman on the cover says, look out, it's Batman and Robin. Like, he even stutters too. He's like, it's Batman, I think. That's definitely Robin, but is it the baby? The Batman baby? And the weirdest part, he still has all the abilities of a full-grown Batman. So it turns out Nails Finney brought them into a trap, and now Batman has shrunk down to the size of a child. So the headlines were amazing in the news that week. Gangland turns Batman into baby, and the photo is just Batman just like, all moody, like at least smile or like put a thumbs up, throw a batarang, a little baby batarang. Robin at one point even has to carry him to the Batmobile. So what does Batman do? He embraces it, of course. He's like, fine, I'll dress like a baby, I'll become Bat Baby, I'll kick your ass. He does well though, or sorry, he does okay, rather, yeah. One of the headlines that you see next reads, Bat Baby does okay for a kid. Yeah, he's okay. He just rode a balloon up into the air and then fought 3 crooks as a baby, but he did okay, guys, it was okay. Don't get that too high, he's fine. Yeah, he had to ride a balloon up because his legs were too small. I don't think we'll ever get this comic on the big screen, but you know what? I'll do it. If I get money, I'll do it myself. I'll hire my cousin, he's like 4, let's do it. And number 3, Zebra Man. We talked a bit about costume changes earlier, but that's not the end of it. Whenever a popular character changes their outfits, fans aren't usually fond of the change. It's not bad, it's just different, So in Detective Comics 275, we meet the villain Zebra Man, who obtained his powers by discovering the lines of force. And no, I don't mean the same lines of force as Snowflame. I mean these lines of force, yeah. So Batman becomes this after Robin accidentally shot this ray at him. Now nobody can go near him or else the new force field Zebra power will blast them back. He actually gets pretty sad about it too. Now of course things go back to normal, but the whole Batman Zebra power idea, it's a little too weird for some, and I don't blame them. And number 2, Batmite. Of course I have to include the 1937 Detective Comics issue 267 because we meet Batmite. Right from the start, the opening line of this dude is just ridiculous. He's like, hey, I'm not an elf, I come from another dimension to help you fight. Won't that be fun? Huh? This wasn't really loved by the readers, I mean of course, so in 1985 after Crisis on Infinite Earths, there wasn't really a rush to bring Batmite back. And lastly on our list we have Bear vs. Bat. Yeah, you heard me. This was issue 285 of Batman, and I mean, just look at the front page illustration. How do you not want to see how this ends? Well, this is quite the holly jolly issue, as it takes place of course during the annual Gotham tree lighting ceremony. And after Batman hears on the police radio that the tree is in flames, he rushes over to investigate, and then this is where he discovers a bear is actually living in this tree. Nice. Now, of course, it's a Batman villain version of a bear. It's not Winnie the Pooh, you know, it's kind of scary. So now Animal Control comes in and safely removes said bear so that everyone can just enjoy the night and be happy and move on. No, that didn't happen at all. Batman actually comes in and decides, you know what, I'm just gonna kick this thing in the neck a few times, see what happens. I mean, I love animals personally, but if an evil bear threw hands with Bruce Wayne, I'm sorry, I gotta take my phone out, we're filming. I'll do it this way, not even this way. I'll give it some respect, you know? The sideways filming.
Number 10, hunting season. This is the beginning of a run, let's remember. The story comes to us from the beginning of Wolverine Volume 5 from 2013, starting off in issue number 1. We start off in the middle of a massacre without really any explanation. Why are we here? What's happening? Why are there all these bones and skeletons in a mall? What's going on? Wolverine is being targeted by a villain who we later learn is named Robert Gregson. Wolverine is trying to protect his son Alex from him as Robert has an alien blaster that can obliterate living cells. Where did this man get this alien blaster? Who gave it to him? Thankfully, Wolverine's healing factor allows him to save the day, but all the dialogue straight out of the gate is just pretty strange and weird, especially as we aren't really given any context before we jump into the situation. We're just thrown into it. Number 9, Vendetta's Echo. Really one of the weirdest things about Wolverine is all the random team-ups he's had. Why? Well, because he's just so popular of a character that everyone wants him to make an appearance in their comic to help sell those issues. Gotta sell those issues. He even made his way into the Blade comic. In issue 6 of the 2006 series, Wolverine popped up during the Superhuman Registration Act days when Blade was tasked with hunting him down. Now these two square off, but Blade ultimately doesn't end up bringing him into S.H.I.E.L.D. custody. Why? Because he remembers years ago the Wolverine actually helped him out. It's a pretty random story all in all, especially as like there is no consequences or anything, but it's fun to see Blade and Wolverine face off. And it's kinda cool to learn they had history, but also, what the heck, that's so random. Wolverine's just had history with everyone, because he's Wolverine I guess. Before we move on to number 8, I just wanted to say thank you so much for watching. We really appreciate you being here. If you want to help us out even more, you can do so by giving this video a thumbs up and hitting that subscribe. We really appreciate it when you do. Number 8, Origin. I actually enjoyed the Wolverine origin story, especially the artwork. I didn't mind a little less mystery when it came to Wolverine in terms of learning his past with Rose and Dog and his original name of James Howlett, but what I did find strange in that story was when they decided to really drive in all the details that we felt were needed in an origin story. Like Logan's codename, Wolverine. Apparently that comes from his mining days according to his origin series. Yep. He works so hard in the mines they call him a Wolverine. What the heck does that mean? Maybe because he's like ruthless like a Wolverine? As far as I know, Wolverines aren't well known for digging or mining skills or their hard work. They're just known for killing things that are larger than them. It would be more appropriate to call him a mole, who are known for their prowess and hard work as diggers. Could you imagine if we had like Mole Man? We do have a Mole Man, he's a villain, so already taken I guess. We can't call Wolverine Mole Man. The other weird thing about this whole comment is the fact that apparently, it's a little Wolverine's code name, but Wolverine doesn't even hear this remark. He's like on a hill while these guys are talking completely far away from him, so he doesn't even hear what they say. And how would he even remember this? Doesn't his memory wipe out all of these traumatic things so he doesn't even know his past? This doesn't make any sense. So I like that we learn a lot about where he came from, but putting the origins of his codename in there just felt a bit much. Unless, like I said, Wolverines do happen to have some mining skills that I'm unaware of. If so, then I guess okay. Let me know in the comments if there's Wolverines that you know that have mining skills. Number 7. Dreams of Gore. What an aptly named story. This one is as strange as it is important. In this story we get tons of important flashbacks to a time when Wolverine got some of his memories back via unexpected flashbacks. Many of them involved his traumatic past, and as the name implies, a lot of gore. As he flashed back to these memories and became lost in them, he almost hurt the ones he loved, like Jubilee, and so he began to dig into those memories. Dig like a mole. Dig like a Wolverine. What we would end up finding was a villain who had a hook for a hand, and the epic but very 90s robo-villain Shiva. Yes. More Shiva, please. Number 6. Tokyo Story. Okay, so this one was more of a full-on X-Men story, but I think as long as Wolverine is primarily featured alongside his fellow X-Men, we can consider it a Wolverine story too. Yeah? You with me? One of the weird parts about this issue is the random dragon they are faced with fighting, who is implied to be a paramour of Lockheed's, though is now apparently much more massive than before. I don't know. But the other strange part is that when Wolverine moves through the rubble looking for survivors after the dragon's attack on Tokyo, he smells blood and follows the scent to find a woman who shielded the blow of a collapsing building from her daughter. Sacrificing her life for her daughters, the nameless dying woman wonders who will look after her daughter when she is gone. Wolverine steps up without any hesitation or questions. Kind of a weird thing when, he's an X-Men with a lot of other responsibilities to be mindful of. He could have promised her to deliver the young girl to relatives, or simply reassured the woman that her daughter would be looked after, but now he says he'll raise her as his own. Which basically means Yukio will actually end up looking after her most of the time, as Wolverine is, busy being an X-Man most of the time, so I don't know really why he made that promise. Number 5. The Black Blade. The Black Blade is the conclusion to a story where Wolverine as Patch finds himself possessed by the influence of Muramasa's Black Blade. Having freed Jessica Drew from its influence, he himself is now possessed by a part of Muramasa's soul. It turns him into a demon-like character, and the unlikely team-up of Lindsay McCabe and Silver Samurai must work together to free Wolverine from its influence, each for their own reasons. Except that neither of them knows that Wolverine is Wolverine, because they're both fooled by his clever disguise as Patch. Even when Lindsay shoots him directly in the head and Patch recovers, saying, I got a thick skull, she's still none the wiser. She's like, sure Patch, you have a thick skull, this makes total sense. I just shot you in the head. How are you getting up? What's happening? I love this weird issue the most though, because of the crazy moment where we think Lindsay may have tortured or killed a woman, but being an actress reveals it was all a good show and clever make pretend. She even did well enough to use stage blood on her blade, which was what had me convinced, but she conveniently apparently got that from O'Donnell's makeup stores that his dancers use. Okay then. Number 4. Fatal Attractions. In the story Fatal Attractions, Wolverine lost all his adamantium and his nose to boot. This all happened when Magneto took things too far and used his powers to pull all the adamantium out of Wolverine's body. That's how I would do that if I had magnet powers. This would result in Wolverine becoming feral, and eventually he would also develop some problems with his healing factor. This would also be a big moment for Wolverine, where he would realize more clearly what his claws were really all about, and the fact that they were made of bone, not adamantium, as had been implied much earlier in the original Wolverine series. Wolverine would eventually get his nose and sanity back when his friends spent time helping him recover his humanity, but before then, it would be an interesting artistic ride, where we'd see Wolverine leave the X-Men and go out on his own for a time. Number 3. See Venice and Die. I just also love the title of this story. What is the title of this story, you know what I mean? This whole story featuring LCD and Albert was just a wacky one. It's just one wacky ride. These two were basically robo-assassins who were attempting to get rid of Wolverine. LCD was an android that looked and sounded like a little girl with a little wisp. She was super cute but super deadly, and designed to also be a bomb that could be used to basically blow Logan away. In this story we see her upgrade her companion Albert, who appears as a cyborg Terminator version version of Wolverine before Albert uses his new smarts and modem to upgrade Elsie herself. This is what actually made Elsie decide not to follow through with her mission eventually and switch sides. Both androids receiving a heightened intelligence made them value life more and want to hold on to it a little longer. Number 2. Midgard's Final Doom. This is an alternate Wolverine story which takes place in a Thor comic, but stick with me here. In this alternate reality, Logan becomes the Phoenix. A few times while palling around with Thor, Logan both attacks King Thor and at other times tries intensely to help him. In Midgard's Final Doom, Phoenix Logan sacrifices himself so that King Thor can finally take out Doom. It's not only strange that there is an alternate future where Wolverine becomes Phoenix, although oddly enough, it actually isn't the only reality or time that this has happened in comics, but it's also strange that Logan sacrifices himself only to come back again later, because you know, I guess that Phoenix can never die and all that. I can't deny that I love how pretty and weird this one is though. It's pretty great. Number 1. Sole Survivor. Remember that time we learned that Wolverine kept having to fight the Angel of Death every time he died in order to come back? Yeah, that was a whole thing that happened. In volume 3 of Wolverine in issue 61, we get a story called Sole Survivor, where we see Logan bargaining to get the part of his soul back that was being held hostage. It's one of those weird stories that is the typical comic book story moment of, oh, that's what you thought happened, but what really happened was this and that and so on. Those good old major misdirects that retcon major stories and plot points away. Gotta love them. This story is so bizarre I doubt many of us remember that it exists, because it's just so weird. But hey, it does. Wolverine explains that when he dies he is forced to fight the Angel of Death, sometimes known as Azrael, sometimes known as Lazir. Winning puts his soul back in his body, which can then heal. Losing means losing his soul for good. I love these strange and weird comic stories. They're honestly some of my favorites. I just like when things get weird in comics. Although it was hard to pick which among these stories was the most gloriously weird and as such my favorite.